Good day, viewers. Because of what I posted the other day on the description of Frederick Lugard on the tribes he merged together, there's been a lot of question, okay, and I want to use this avenue to address them. They brought the issue of Nnamdi Azikiwe. I'll talk about it. They also brought the issue of Aguiyi Ironsi. I'll also talk about it. But before we dive into those topics, it is important we understand the coup of 1966 because this is what will give us a clue or will take us into addressing men like Agi Ironsi and Nnamdi Azikiwe. Okay, so let's dive into the coup of 1966. Okay, now what you know of Igbo coup, because they call it Igbo coup, because that is what you've known, that is what you've been taught, that is what you've been told. Okay, so although before Ibrahim Badomusi Babangida IBB, okay, the former head of state of Nigeria, before he came out to say that there is nothing like an Igbo coup, or there was nothing like an Igbo coup, I've already told people 13, 14 years ago that there is nothing like an Igbo coup. I taught my students about that. I told them, okay, I didn't give them the wrong narratives, okay, because I studied the scenario, the situation that led to that coup, and I understood that it was all in favor of the West. It was all in favor of the Yorubas, the Southwest. Okay, so there was no basics for you to say it's an Igbo coup. Okay, so I disclaimed that long ago. Okay, now let's talk about the Yoruba coup of 1966. Yes, it's a Yoruba coup. And why did I say so? Now, what prompted that coup? Why was there a coup? Okay, because in Nigeria, there wouldn't have been a coup. The military wouldn't have come in the first place. We wouldn't have had a military government or a military system of government in Nigeria. Okay, the things that prompted it is what we are about to talk about now, which is the 1966 coup, Nigerian coup or Yoruba coup. Okay, that is actually what brought about military into the picture of Nigerian system. Okay, now, and there was not going to be any coup. Nigeria was okay running, and so there wouldn't have been a coup, okay, if not for what prompted the coup. Okay, now, and what brought about this coup? How did we end up having a coup on the 15th of January, 1966? Why did we have a coup? Why did we have a coup? How did the coup come about? Now, there was crisis ravaging the Southwest. There was crisis in Yoruba land. There was ongoing tension. There was chaos. There was turbulence in Yoruba land. A lot of things was going on. Political tussle, strifes was going on between Obafemi Awolowo and Akintola, the two prominent figures in Yoruba politics, the two hard men, the two elephants were fighting. And it got to an extent where the Prime Minister of Nigeria said that the situation was beyond his control. The Prime Minister of Nigeria said the situation was beyond his control. Now, what was this coup all about? What prompted the whole thing? Now, Obafemi Awolowo was the premier of Western region. He was the premier of Yoruba land. Okay, he resigned from being premier and went to the federal house. Okay, in 1959. Okay, in 1959 to context, he wanted to become the prime minister of Nigeria. Okay, so when he left the position of premier, then Akintola took over and became the premier of the Western region. Okay, now Obafemi Awolowo was the leader of the AG Action Congress. Okay, he was the leader. Now, when he went to the federal and he lost election there, he lost election. Okay, he didn't succeed his bid to become the prime minister of Nigeria. Okay, now Awolowo Akintola was controlling the West as the premier, the new premier of Western region. Now, Akintola preferred working with the North, the North, okay, and the North won the election. They are the ones that produced the prime minister, Tafawa Balewa. And Akintola, who was the premier of the West, preferred working with them. And Awolowo was not happy with that because Awolowo was an opposition leader. He was always fighting against the government in power, the government of Tafawa, the government that had their way into power. Awolowo was a very strong opposition. He was always criticizing them. He was always fighting against them. Why his prime minister, which is Akintola, who is a member of his party, who contested with his party, is working with them? So that is where this whole issue started. So Akintola refused to be loyal to the party, to be loyal to Awolowo, okay, to bow down to him and all that. He preferred working with these other people, and Awolowo weren't pleased with that. Now, Awolowo, as the leader of the party, have to move further and make sure Akintola was impeached. A vote of no confidence was passed on Akintola in 1962. That was what brought about the uproar in the Southwest, in Yoruba land. That was what brought the uproar in Southwest. Now, Akintola had his own faction. Then Awolowo had his own faction. That was what was going on. Chaos everywhere, crisis everywhere. They were burning places, destroying life and property, killing themselves. The situation was too much that the prime minister said he could no longer control it. It was beyond control. The chaos, the tension, everything. People were dying, lives and properties were being destroyed because of this political interest, because of all these things. Now, the federal government have to call on Zachariah Maimalari, Brigadier Maimalari, to draw the map of the Southwest for subjugation. The Southwest was programmed, their map was drawn for subjugation. The federal planned subjugation on the Southwest, on the Yorubas. And this subjugation was to come up on the 17th of January, 1966. So the Yorubas, in a bid to save themselves, in a bid to protect themselves, in a bid to save their acts, they needed people to rescue them. They know they couldn't handle the situation. That was where they had to meet some Igbo boys who they know they are brave, they are courageous. They have to involve the Igbo boys. That was when they met Kaduna Nzog, Chukwuemeka Nzog. They went to meet Nzog to tell him this is what is going on. And Nzog, being a disciplined military officer, every account gave it that he was very disciplined and strict. He was a no-nonsense person. Kaduna Nzog have to get in the picture. They contracted Ifejuna and all that. Then they had their alliance. People now gathered. They now form their people and told them what was going on and what they were about to do. That they have to scuttle that plan of the federal. That was why you had a coup on the 15th of January, 1966. Scuttling the proposed plan of the federal of 17th January, 1966. So the people have to strike before the federal had to subjugate the Southwest. That was all about the coup. Now, Awolowo was arrested and charged for treason, treasonable felony. The federal arrested him and charged him for treason. It was also an Igbo man, an Igbo lawyer, an Igbo judge that reduced the sentence of Awolowo. Now, the coup plotters planned with Awolowo that they will have this coup, eliminate those corrupt leaders, because it was said that the current government, that the government in power was so corrupt. They tag it as the most corrupt government, but I doubt if it is more corrupt than what we're having now in Nigeria. And when we had the past administration in Nigeria, I doubt if it's more corrupt than this ones. You get it? So they said the government was very corrupt, was too corrupt in all ramification. Somebody will get into the army right now, 6 months or so, they will promote the person to colonel, to brigadier and all that, leaving the people who has already been there. And so a lot of criminality, looting fund, public fund, and all that. A lot of things was going on in the government. So these people actually, the coup plotters actually saw a reason to strike. Now, they met Awolowo because Awolowo himself confirmed this, that they will have this coup done, bring him out of prison, and install him as the new prime minister of Nigeria. So this coup was centered on two things. One, saving the Yorubas from the planned subjugation of the federal government of Nigeria. That is one. Second one was to release Awolowo, who has been charged for treasonable felony, and also install him as the prime minister of Nigeria. So the coup, the two things that prompted the coup, and the things, the people that would have also benefited from the coup were the Yorubas. Releasing a Yoruba man from prison and making him the prime minister, and also saving the Yorubas from the planned subjugation of the federal government. So these two things were to save the Yorubas and also to favor the Yorubas. So how then did the narrative change to become an Igbo coup? How then did it become an Igbo coup? That is what I am not understanding. How then did it become an Igbo coup? How then did they succeed to peddle these lies and hate that it was an Igbo coup? How then did they achieve that? How then did they do that? Now, Nigeria says the people of Delta State people, that they are not Igbo. And Kaduna Nzog, who was the spearheader of the coup of 1966, was from Delta State. But they say that the Delta people are not Igbo. So how then did they still went ahead to tag it as an Igbo coup, since the people of Delta State are not Igbo? And Kaduna Nzog was the main man in the spearheading of the coup. How then did they come up with the narrative that it was an Igbo coup? Do you now understand it? All the agenda of the Yorubas. They got the Igbos involved, knowing that they were the ones who were brave. They were the ones who are fearless. They are the ones who can actually push for this. The Igbos got involved in order to save them and also install them as leader. At the end of the day, they still turned it around and pinned it on the Igbos that it was an Igbo coup. It was still an Igbo man who released Awolowo from prison and took him to safety in Calabar. It was still an Igbo man. At the end of the day, the Igbos are being painted black, painted evil. So that is all about the 1966 coup in Nigeria. It was a Yoruba coup. There were so many people who were involved in the coup. The Igbos were involved, the Yorubas were involved, the Middle Beltans were involved, the Northerners were involved in large quantity. In fact, Igbos didn't have more population in the coup. The other tribe had more populations. So how then did the narrative turn to be an Igbo coup? So do you get that? That is all about the 1966 Yoruba coup. So whenever you come across it, you address it very well, that it was a Yoruba coup. It wasn't an Igbo coup. Starting from the conflict that erupted in the southwest, in the Yoruba land, to everything that went on. That was how it went. So it was a Yoruba coup. So I'll bring you the other topics. Stay tuned.